If I described our work, I could start with we're a youth development program providing healthy organic meals to families that are going through a health crisis. We are bringing young people 14 and up into our kitchen every single week to prepare those meals, to package those meals. The youth component is deeply important to our growth and to the impact that we're having in our community on young people. When a client writes a note back to a youth and says, "Thank you for saving my life," they realize they matter. And I think that is what we started to see, this incredible pride that these kids have for knowing that those meals that those families are getting were made by them.
Hello and welcome to the Conspiracy of Goodness podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Linda Ulrich, and I'm also the co-founder of a big website doing positive news for the last 13 years. Not puppies and mailboxes, not stories about happiness, but real word of innovation and folks who are looking at problems that are chronic in society and coming at it with fresh ideas. Today, we get to welcome back a good friend of mine, someone who embodies the spirit of this conspiracy of goodness that I do a lot of public speaking about these days. Sarah Leathers is the founder at an organization called the Healing Meals Community Project in Hartford County, Connecticut. It's a place where, simply put, good food and good people come together to heal in more ways than one. Healing Meals is an extraordinary nonprofit with a double mission. They provide truly nourishing meals to people recovering from major health setbacks, and at the same time, they create this transformative space where adult volunteers, mentors, and staff interact with local high schoolers. And in these kitchens, teens learn alongside folks that are teaching them how to discover their best selves. Something bigger than themselves is happening here. And of course, we all thrive in an environment where we're contributing to the service of others. This is actually Sarah's second visit. She was here when we were on episode number 80, I think it was 87. The title of that episode is Finding Your Best Self by Solving a Problem for Others. And Sarah reminds us that purpose often comes when we look outside ourselves. That is something I see ubiquitous through everyone I've interviewed for the Goodness Exchange and written about. And today, Sarah's back, and we're going to talk about some new wisdom that she's really expanded on since our last conversation. Healing Meals is really growing and serving this teenage population of volunteers in a truly new way. And she's got some extraordinary insights about what teenagers need to thrive and how we help them discover their best selves. So in this conversation, I think you're going to fall in love with this organization, the ethos, and hopefully you'll be inspired to do some volunteering, some mentoring, some encouraging of young folks of your own. So welcome, Sarah Leathers.
Linda, as always, I love having conversations with you. From the time we first met and did the podcast, we've continued to remain close and have conversations. So I'm excited to be back and talk more about kind of the work that we're doing that's really enhanced where we started back in the day. So thanks for having me.
Well, we need to own that we became way more than just podcast acquaintances.
Yeah.
There was something about the chemistry between Sarah and I, and we have on our calendar ever since, must be going on 3 years now, Sarah, Friday mornings at 8 a.m. we meet and we talk about our organizations. We problem solve. We share things about our kids and help solve problems for each other. It's really something.
Yeah, it's really special.
Yeah, and I can't wait for the day we actually meet.
It will happen.
I know. And
we're hours apart, many hours apart.
I know. Well, I think that's a little aside, but it just goes to show you that this virtual life that came upon us, some like a freight train. I was doing quite a bit of it with the Goodness Exchange before, but boy, when the pandemic hit, this kind of dialogue, this kind of relationship, turned out fine for me. I'm delighted. We've become friends. And
yes.
of course, I know more than most about your journey. And what I wanted to talk about today is this expanding knowledge that you have about young people, what they need from us, what they need from the world, and what they show us. Because that's the other thing. It really seems like the young people in your organization teach you as much as you guys are mentoring them.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So take it from the top. First, let's get people acquainted with the Healing Meals model. What actually are you guys doing?
Yeah. So we are based on a model that my sister started in California back in 2007. Truly a dual mission of providing healthy organic meals to families that are going through a health crisis. We serve those families for anywhere from 12 to 24 weeks. We serve everybody in the family. And the health crisis could be physical, mental, cancer. We have a maternal health program for low income women. Our feeling is if you can't put a healthy meal on the table for your family, that's a health crisis. So we really have expanded the diagnoses that we're serving. And at the same time, we are bringing young people 14 and up into our kitchen every single week to prepare those meals, to package those meals. And, you know, I have to thank my sister for putting this out into the universe, trusting her instincts and really running with it. And there's 9 affiliates in the country doing this work now, and 1 in Denmark, and 1 is opening in New Zealand. And it is really unique. If I described our work, I could describe it either way. I could start with we're a youth development program and the kids are providing meals to families in a health crisis, or vice versa. One is not more important than the other. And I think that's really important because that makes the foundation of who we are and all the core team understanding what our values are and how we show up every day for all of those teens and all of those adult volunteers, as well for our clients. So those things are really important, that they understand the youth component is deeply important to our growth and to the impact that we're having in our community on young people.
That's what I hear. That's what I hear you talk about every week, is the new insights that you're learning. Okay. So Healing Meals is serving 2 vital missions at the same time, which is something I love. I mean, that you guys, I think it started out as the Healing Meals, the meals part of this. And like, where does that journey? Did you always have teens in the kitchen?
We always had youth.
Oh.
We always had youth. But to your point, Linda, we were so focused on supporting families in a health crisis.
Yeah.
And we thought, isn't that nice? We're following along what my sister's doing and we're bringing young people in. But what we started to see, which again, we didn't realize would happen, was kids kept showing up. The same kids kept coming week after week after week. And, you know, over time, to give everyone an understanding, we've delivered 220,000 meals since we started back in 2016. Over that time, we've had more than 750 youth come through our program. And we just kept seeing these kids coming week after week. And we originally asked them to make a 3-month commitment because there's a lot of training involved. We want them to get comfortable because we all know it's really hard to go someplace new. So once they get there the first time, we want them to get comfortable. And then, you know, we know they have other activities and they come and they go. But we've had over 170 youth earn their blue apron, which is over 50 hours of volunteering with us. And we've had over 60 have earned their chef coat, which is over 100 hours. And just last week, we said goodbye to a youth volunteer who had over 400 hours with us, who took a year off from school, became a staff member, and now is going back to school to finish her degree. And, you know, she said to us, being at Healing Meals is a safe place for me. It's where I find my happy place. And we hear that. And so when those things started to happen, we thought, okay, what is it? What is it about the experience that kids are having with us versus other, maybe volunteer, right? We say kids are voluntold, right? And so they should have it on their resume. And so, but the fact that we often have a wait list to get teens in every single week. And so we started to just really look at what we were doing, what we were creating, a space for kids. And I think that's what we've learned over time is what kind of our secret sauce is.
Well, and that's kind of what I saw evolving over time. Like you started to actually get really curious about these great stories that you kept hearing periodically. Then you got really curious about surveying and actually collecting some data. Yeah. Tell us about that, because that's remarkable.
Yeah, I think it's just so important to be evaluating your work, especially as a nonprofit. Every dollar that a donor gives us, we want to make sure that we are using in the best possible way. So from day one, I think we have built a strong foundation operationally of, really looking at our work and making sure we are using that money in the best way possible to support our clients and our youth programming. So we started with some basic surveys a few years ago, and it was great. We were learning that kids were eating more fruits and vegetables since being in our program. We were learning that kids 90% of the kids felt like they could make a meal from scratch. All of those things are really good, right? But there's another side to building teens and helping teens really build the skills they need to thrive in the world. And many years ago, I worked with inner city youth in Hartford, that young men who had dropped out of high school, and I was mentoring them and tutoring, and it was a construction training program. And one of the things that I brought back, something I had learned earlier, was the National Search Institute has something called the 40 developmental assets. So I went back to that, and it really looks at how are kids doing in their community, in their school, and at home. And if they have a majority of that support system, then it shows that they can thrive. So a couple of years ago, we went back to the Search Institute, and they have developed something called the Developmental Relationship Framework. And it's much simpler. And it really looks at how do young people build relationships in community, home, and school? And what do those relationships look like? And so we said to the Search Institute, hey, we work with young people. Will you help us build a survey so that we can really understand how are we doing on these important areas, right? We think we're doing well, but how are we actually doing? And so just recently, we got the results of that survey. And the gentleman from the Search Institute was like, these results are amazing. Amazing. And so, now it helps us to see, one of the things we say all the time is we want to create a really safe place for kids and adults. We want every kid, we want everyone to be able to ask questions and not feel like there are no bad questions. We are a no phone zone. So the youth come in and they put their phones away. And at the beginning, that can be hard for kids, right? But then they realize, oh, wait a minute, I don't need this, right? We provide an opportunity for young people to really realize their agency in the world when they realize, one of the things the kids do every week is write personal note cards to every client. We're serving over 90 families, and those young people sit every week and write cards. Those cards are so important to our clients. Many of them are living alone. When a client writes a note back to a youth and says, "Thank you for saving my life," and you can turn to a teenager and say, "You did that by giving up 2 to 3 hours of your week to come in and help us. When you're not here, we miss you." They realize they matter. They matter in the world. And I think that, Linda, is what we started to see, this incredible pride that these kids have for knowing that those families, those meals that those families are getting were made by them. The love and care that went into those meals. When clients write back, "I feel the love in every bite," right? We create an energy in our building of joy and love and care. And the other thing I think that's really important is nobody's job is more important than the other, right? On any given day, our executive chef takes out the garbage, mops the floor. I go in and do dishes, right? The youth are working alongside adults, and we're one group. We're one group. And I have to share this one quote that a young volunteer recently wrote an article about healing meals that she wants to get published. And she said this: "What makes healing meals so unique? It's not just about cooking. It's about connection. Every shift brings new faces. And even though we come from different schools and backgrounds, there's an unspoken bond among us. We're all there for the same reason, to give back to people who need it most." And I think that's it. I think that's that sense of, I'm needed here. My job is really important. They have important jobs when they're here. It's not just to write the notes, which are also very important, but they're chopping and cooking and packaging, and they do it all, and they build their confidence. So I think, that's what's been shown over time. And we're really kind of digging in to say, okay, that's great. What more can we do? Because we know kids these days are struggling.
Yeah. Okay. So we decided to do this episode recently when you and I were having our regular Friday call, and you told me about a lovely night where you were, I believe it was a fundraiser, I'm not sure, or maybe it was a celebration of a milepost of some sort. And you had a parent speaking about the progress and the lovely change that she had seen in her, I think it was her daughter, but and then you told us about what the kids stood up there, like that they would stand up there and public speak like that is amazing too. Something gave them the courage and the inspiration. So tell these stories, please, because that's.
Yeah. So, way back when we first started, one of the things we did to just get people to learn about healing meals is we had these, what we call our Nourishing Our Neighbors dinner parties. And friends of ours would invite 10 or 12 people over who maybe didn't have any connection to healing meals. And a couple adults, myself and one of our other adult volunteers, and 3 or 4 youth would show up at these people's houses, and we would prepare their meal. And we would talk about healing meals. And during dessert, we would bring the youth in, and we would get them to just share about their experience. And so what I realized was so many young people don't have an opportunity to speak in front of people. And when I tell you how nervous kids were, I can't go, I'm not going to do that. And I would say, look, all I need you to do is come in and just say your name. And I would watch them as they did this over time, get more and more comfortable. And when we have any of our big fundraisers, our teens are always cooking and serving at those, but they also get the opportunity to talk about why they're involved. And it's amazing to me, a young person who seems so shy and reserved cannot wait to tell everyone how proud they are to be part of Healing Meals. And then I think the other thing that happens is at every shift at Healing Meals, we start in a circle, and it's a way to introduce ourselves because we always have new people or different people at shifts. There's a question of the week. It can be everything from, something that's kind of a deeper question to a funny question. But that in and of itself helps young people speak in front of each other, right? And these are all, they become peers and they become friends, right? But we give them these opportunities to build their communication skills just in the way we kind of do things. And so
that's not a small group they're talking to either, right?
No, it can be up to 20 people.
Yeah. So they're sort of getting in a rhythm of talking to a lot of people every single week, or right, as often as they can.
And you really watch them grow and kind of, you peel them back a layer at a time, we often say, because what happens is, especially when we have questions that are tough, right? Like one of the things we do a few times a year is we ask you turn to your person to your left and you say something nice about them. Now, they may not know that person. And by the time that we get around the circle, you could hear a pin drop. And it is the most beautiful thing to watch because it really gets us out of our comfort zone, but it gets us to think differently. How do I see this person? What is one thing I can say to that person that is a feel good? It's like the notes that they write to the clients, right? It's a feel good note. Well, you have to change your mindset to sit down and write a feel good note, right? But you can see at the beginning of that circle, if I were to scan the group and you have somebody who's never done it, you can see kind of this look of fear. What am I going to, and they're looking at the person to the left. Like, what am I going to say to that person? But as the circle goes around and people are willing to be vulnerable, there is a comfort in knowing, oh, I can do that too. And then after they do it, you can just see how good they feel by sharing something kind. It might be we say, if you don't know somebody, you can even just say, thank you so much for being here today. But even in that small gesture, it can make such a big difference. So back to, talking to a parent one evening and her just sharing about her son's experience and her son going through the foster care system and just having a really difficult time. And I remember the day that young man started volunteering, and we peeled him back a layer at a time, and we welcomed him every single week. I watched our chef just in the most beautiful way, just give him opportunities. Were you going to say something?
Yeah. I just wanted to interject. I do feel that, you're using this peel, we peeled him back. I do think that our society, it's just set up so kids have to develop a pretty hard exterior.
Yeah,
you can't afford to be soft. People just prey on that.
Right.
The bullying, the one-upmanship, the competition. And it's something I've noticed about teenagers in our dental practice, in the dental office. That was always Dr. Chuck and my really overall goal is to take this sullen kid that sits down in the dental chair and, the mom would say, as we were walking back with the son, he's going to be a jerk. Just go ahead and get it done.
Right.
And,
right.
You wonder how come he made the thorny exterior, right?
Right.
But then that's part of our adult conscientious responsibility is to help kids feel comfortable to let some of those layers and layers go. And then they turn out to be this most beautiful of things. I hate to interrupt, but I think when we are sitting at a family function or a picnic or whatever, and our nephew's just sullenly sitting there, or, we can't relate to teenagers, I just wanted to interject. This is not who those kids are. And that's what you've discovered. This hard coding.
That's what we've discovered. And I think the other thing that I think our team is really good at is one, leaving their own stuff at the door, because our goal is to make sure that everybody leaves in a better place than when they came in. Wanting that experience, right? Because one, we can't do it without our volunteers. And so we want that experience to be joyful and fulfilling and have them feel appreciated. And so, we don't know with most people around us what's going on behind the scenes. We don't know. We don't know the traumas that they've been in. So all we can do is provide a space that we say, thank you. Thank you for being you. Thank you for showing up. And so with this young man, he kept coming. He kept coming and he kept coming. And so we thought, okay, even though we're not learning a lot, right? But we could start to see a comfort and a change. And then when he earned his blue apron, there was a shift in this young man that was so beautiful.
Tell me about the blue apron again.
So they earn their blue apron with their name on it after 50 hours of service.
Right.
So if you're new to the group, you have a gray apron, then you earn your blue apron. And that says something about, right? You know what to do here. You're accomplished. We see you, we really see you. And what was interesting was there was just a shift for him. And he just started to open up, and he's since earned his chef coat. But I reached out to his mom, and after I had this interaction with her, and I said, I would just love to know your takeaway from what you have seen. And she shared with me, she said, he has reduced anxiety. He has reduced stress. His confidence has gone off the charts. He has a bigger awareness of kind of his social norms, and his interactions in the world. He has more trust in people. These are big things, right? Big things. And she said he would come home from volunteering, and throughout the rest of the night, he would talk about the activities that he did, or the stories that he heard, or about the clients, because we often read a story of a client. And she said, I could see the pride in him, knowing that he knew that he was a piece to that. And I think that, and she said one other thing. She said, he has a new way he wants to live his life. And it's about learning it's about trusting and learning new things, right? So people often say to us, oh, do most of your kids go on to culinary school? And I was like, no, but most of them have become aware of the people around them and the way people are dealing with things, and that they can actually make somebody's day better.
And it's unfortunate that we live in a world where kids don't have the opportunity to learn and do and know those things every day.
Yeah.
I think that that's the big picture lesson for me in listening to how this has all expanded for you over the last 3 years is there's this little bit of me that's remorseful that there isn't healing meals in every single town or something like it.
I'm with you.
But then,
I'm with you. I hear that a lot.
But then there's that secret sauce problem.
But then there's that secret sauce problem, right? And that secret sauce, like, again, we're coming up on our 10-year anniversary, and that secret sauce, those core values, you can't just replicate that overnight, right? It has to do with the amazing team here that are so committed to the work, and they're so committed to every volunteer, to every client, to every donor, so that their experience when they get introduced or they're part of Healing Meals is really, really positive. And I think that's what maybe why it's taken me as long as it has. I thought in 5 years I would be covering all of Connecticut with meals, and we're not there yet, but we're expanding to that. But now we've built a really strong foundation. And I think the other thing is, as every year I have 4 youth on my board of directors, and that is giving those young people an opportunity for leadership, an opportunity to see the inner workings of an organization. But more importantly, when I meet with them at the beginning before they go to their first board meeting, I say, you 4 were chosen because you bring something important to this table. Your experience at Healing Meals, you're in it every week. And I'm asking you to show up and to help us enhance our work. And our board members don't have that experience, but you do. So your voice is really important at this table. And it's wonderful to see them speak up and be comfortable again, sharing their ideas. And it's fun to hear them then talk about their experience as a board member. And, they'll say, oh, I'm sitting alongside really smart people, really accomplished people. And I was like, yes, just like you, and so they see themselves alongside of that. And, all of that combined, I tell people all the time, we're very multi-layered in what we do. It's very hard to talk about our work in a quick elevator speech.
Yeah. Okay. So let's take a break and we're going to break that down so you don't have to do that. I want to hear about the kitchen environment. I want to hear about how young people, see the struggles of others and then respond to that. There's so much your data that I think this concept of really scrutinizing yourself with surveys and things that is hard for some organizations to do. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So let's take a break. When we come back, we'll learn more with Sarah Leathers and the Healing Meals Community Project. You know how the constant negative noise in our digital lives feels like it's reaching a boiling point? Now, many of us have tuned out the news and social media almost entirely. Well, it doesn't have to be that way. There are newsworthy stories about amazing progress, innovation, leaps in human potential, and wonders in the natural world, and they're just not reaching the top of our feeds. We can have access to this, but none of us has the time or maybe even the emotional stamina to search through all the doom and gloom news to find what's right with the world. Okay, enter the Goodness Exchange. There, we are giving instant access to positive news for curious people. Did you hear about the recent Harvard study that found that exposure to just 4 minutes of good news can make you 32% less anxious and 18% more optimistic? Well, I don't know about you, but I need those kind of numbers in my life. So if you want to live with more joy and way less fear, it's really simple. First, you join us at the Goodness Exchange. Everyone around the world has the opportunity to access this kind of content. And we've promised no politics for about a decade, so you're safe from all that distraction as well. Second, you allow this new, more positive, balanced worldview to put a spring in your step again. It can change the way you react to your kids, your coworkers, everybody you come in contact with. And the stories we write about can make you the idea person in your circles. These challenging times call for us to wake up and take control of our perspective. The people who use the Goodness Exchange have the ability to react to the harshness of the world much different because they know way more about what's right with the world. And that's a resource. So subscribe to the Goodness Exchange, our YouTube channel and the podcast, and use this content to live a more expansive worldview. It is still an amazing world out there, and you can be a part of it. Welcome to the Conspiracy of Goodness. Okay, we're back with Sarah Leathers, founder of Healing Meals Community Project of Hartford County, Connecticut. If you are just joining us, Healing Meals is an amazing nonprofit in Hartford County that not only serves really healthy meals to people who have suffered a health setback of some sort, but they also introduce teen volunteers to the world of possibility, discovery about themselves and serving others, and all these things that are so important to being a good human. And I want you to talk to us about what being a good human looks like in a kitchen that size.
So we serve families once a week, and we serve about 90 families a week. So that can be up to like 160 people. And we have on average 120 volunteers a week that support our program. So when I just to give you a little story, when I hired our new executive chef who'd been in the restaurant business for 25 years, I said to him, I'm bringing you on because we're growing and we need to do more, but you're going to work alongside all volunteers, mostly, and you have to be really nice to them. And you have to get out, 850 meals a week in 3 days. And he has stepped up just so beautifully. A couple years ago, it was about 6 months after he had started, and we had an event. And as I shared earlier, when we have an event, we always bring our youth out to talk. But I invited Joe, our chef, to come out and talk about his experience over the last 6 months. And he shared that he had been hired for production and being able to do more. And he said, but you know what I learned very quickly? My job is to create a really safe space for everyone. And I think that says it right there. He has created a really safe space, right? His job is to make sure the meals get out. His job is to make sure the meals are healthy, they're beautiful, all of those things. And he has the responsibility of these 120 volunteers who show up every week to help, to have them have a good experience. And so that ability to create that with people who aren't cooks, maybe have never cooked, right, is really, really important. And I think that happens because we have seasoned youth volunteers who have earned their blue apron and their chef coat. So when Joe joined us, we had seasoned blue aprons and seasoned chef coats who worked alongside him. who showed Joe how we do things. We have seasoned adult volunteers that earn their green apron after 85 hours of service. If I could show you the number of green and blue aprons that we have hanging, it's pretty remarkable. People are working collaboratively together. There's different groups that come out in throughout the week, and they might be washing we get beautiful produce from our local farms that have to be cleaned and washed and weighed. There's a whole group that does that. There's a whole group that preps and dices and chops and roasts and whatever. And then our youth come in the afternoons and they cook. So they'll still dice and chop and whatever. But when you think about the meals that we're getting out in 3 days, there's a lot of work that's done ahead of time. And then everything gets packaged and everything gets labeled, and so there's so much collaboration and communication that is critical to our success. And, kids are seeing that. Kids are seeing, I am part of that communication. I am part of that collaboration. And those are skills that they don't realize they're learning, but they're learning every time they show up, right? Here's the thing I love also. Things don't go well all the time in the kitchen. Right? Kids these days don't have good coping skills. And so we can show them a whole tray of something dropped, or we made this soup and it just is not good. What do? How do we fix it? We work as a team. We give the kids the opportunity to say, how could we fix this? And it's not a big deal. I think that's the other thing. Something doesn't go right and everything seems to be a big deal. It's not a big deal. We can fix it. So, maybe something gets over-salted. So you say to the kids, well, how would you fix that? And, maybe they try something, it doesn't work. All right. So what could we do? And then they realize, there's more than one way to skin a cat, right? And we have adult mentors that work side by side with our youth. And those are very special people because we've asked them that their role is to guide and support a young person, right? And like we know, not everybody shows up in the right frame of mind, whether you're an adult or a youth and whatever. But in your role as an adult mentor, it's to provide the young people with support. And so we have some very, very, very special adult mentors that are helping these kids build these important life skills. At the end of the day, if you talk to anybody who's in the process of hiring kids out of college right now, they'll tell you kids don't have good communication skills. They don't look you in the eye, right? They don't have executive function that, we've done this spring, a whole kind of regroup on, are we giving kids opportunities to build their executive functioning skills? We worked with a psychologist and an occupational therapist, and they came and surveyed our work and gave us some suggestions. And when we started, Linda, back in the day, we would give kids a recipe that was scaled for 4 to 6 people. And we'd say, okay, you need to scale it for 25. Right. We had time for the kids to figure all that out, right? We don't have that time now. And so they're not getting that type of opportunity. So what can we do to build in some of those opportunities for them to build those kind of executive functioning skills, which again are so critical in the world, and helping them problem solve.
How do you see it changes a kid to realize that they can alleviate somebody's suffering? I think that kids suffer a lot. They're under so much pressure, and it's just a strange world, but for them to see that they can relieve someone's suffering is got to be empowering.
It's incredible. It's incredible for a young person to realize their impact that they're making. And, I've shared this story with you before, but one of our youth volunteers came after school one day to do her shift. And she said, "You are not going to believe what happened to me today." She said, "I was at school and a girl came up to me and asked me if I did healing meals." And, Anna is known for recruiting all of her friends. And she said, "Sarah, I put my sales cap on and I was ready to recruit her." And she said, "My mom got your note last night. And I want you to know what a difference you're making for my family." And, Anna is forever changed by that experience. But when I shared that with other youth volunteers, and I said to them, "You may never get that kind of exchange, but you have to know in school, on the soccer sidelines, right? In your community at the grocery store, there are people around you everywhere that you have impacted their family's life. You have to know that. We have served 2,500 people in these 10 years, right? These families. And they're all around here, right? We serve 70 towns. And so you have to know. And that, when they hear that, there's like almost a gasp of, I did that, right? And I think, there's so many wonderful, incredible nonprofit organizations. And there's a lot of opportunities for young people to volunteer, but not always do they, or raise money, right? But there's not opportunities for them to have an immediate understanding of impact that, I'll give you another example. We have a maternal health program right now working with low-income moms in Hartford, providing healthy, nutritious meals during their pregnancy. When those babies are born, we're getting pictures of those babies. And those babies are up on the wall. And again, we can turn to our volunteers and say, "Look at what you helped create. This healthy baby that may not have had a healthy start had they not had the meals that you made for them." So, food, as we know, is such an incredible connector, and it's so powerful. So that in and of itself is so, so important.
So, you told me some stories of how you've changed the lives of some kids from like the high school aspirations to the college aspirations. Tell us some of those stories.
So I think what's been really interesting as kids have come back and they've talked about the work that they want to get into. As I mentioned, people say, "Oh, are they going to culinary school or whatever?" And what's been fascinating to talk to those young people is they're looking at the world differently. And what I mean about that is, several of them went off to school to be doctors. But what they have learned is there's a whole other side of caring for people that you can do without becoming a doctor. Now, becoming a doctor is important and that's great, but they've realized I can go into social service. I can go into nonprofit work in different parts of the world, and they're taking mission trips. And they're learning, they're more open-minded, I think is what it is. They're not as narrow focused. They see the world differently. We talk a lot about also the demographics of our clients, which is, all over the place, right? And we did a summer internship this summer with 12 of our youth. They were in 15 hours a week, and it was much more enhanced in the work that they were doing. But we took them on some field trips into Hartford, into some Hartford programs that are also doing work for, the underserved population. It opened their eyes. it just opened their eyes. And so I think as kids go off to college and they're taking the experience that they've had at Healing Meals, the confidence that they've built, the greater understanding of how food affects families' nutrition, poor nutrition can be such a factor, that they're digging deeper into what they want to be doing.
You've had them tell you as much.
Yes. Oh, yes. Like I said, one young woman was going to medical school and she's like, you know what? I think I can have a greater impact by, going in a direction of more research and really helping to understand these certain areas, which I was so surprised. Kids come back and they're like, I just want to start this where I live, so it's been, and I also think at the same side of that, they're building their confidence in thinking, oh, I can do that maybe they didn't think they could. And now they're like, wait a minute, I can do that. And here's another interesting point. Our adult volunteers and our youth work incredibly close together, right? Every single week. A lot of times they're on the same shifts. They build relationships. They learn about what the adult volunteers did for careers or what they're doing for careers. They open up. They have these amazing conversations that it's not a parent and a youth. It's not a teacher and a youth. It's like an adult friend. And so they'll open up, right? And they'll build a beautiful relationship while making these meals together. And that is also helps to form what they want to do next in the world.
What do you think the adult volunteers get from this? Like, I can imagine.
So much joy. They absolutely love. I mean, we gathered our adult mentors together recently and they told the kids, like, this is my favorite place to be alongside you every single week. You amaze me. I learn from you. It's this, again, this beautiful, healthy relationship, intergenerational relationship that happens, that there's not a lot of places that you get that.
And, I think it teaches kids a life skill, that intergenerational relationship. There's so much acrimony now between generations and it's so discouraging, but I think it teaches them so much about what's possible.
Yeah. And to that, I think what's also beautiful is people will say to me, oh, you work with teenagers? And I'm like, it is a gift. I get to work with teenagers. They're incredible. And I say all the time, like, if this is our future, we're in good hands. They care deeply. They care deeply about this world, about the people in it. I think they're more open-minded to each other. And we have kids from, all walks of life, all trying to figure out who they are. And, we just create a space where kids can be, the hope is that they can be the best that they're supposed to be in the world and really figure out who that is without judgment, without, an exam hanging over their head, without, a parent trying to be a parent, right? We've all been parents and parenting is hard. So giving them a space where, there's kind of not somebody looking over your shoulder, but saying, hey, you can do that, I think has been really fun to see.
So big picture, Sarah, as we wrap up here, there's not a Healing Meals anywhere but Hartford County. So tell us, big picture, what we should be looking for in our own way, in our own communities, to help youth or just feel a part of something we can care deeply about by volunteering ourselves Tell us, give us some of your wisdom on volunteering and how we can help youth.
Yeah, I would say that, look for, number one, just look at every young person with awe and believe that young person is unique and special and has a gift to give. And, I think, and for every young person, look at every adult with awe. And try and find, even when you're somebody who, maybe you have a teacher that you don't get along with, or maybe you're working, maybe you've got a young teenager that you're really struggling with. Find what is really special about that person and honor that. I think that's so important in today's world. There's so much pressure for all of us, right? To show up in a certain way. And if we just were willing to be alongside each other and see the best in each other, and also to understand we all have our days, right? So I think first and foremost, and then if you have organizations in your community that you can get involved in at any level, right? Like some of our delivery angels, they come after work and make a delivery, and maybe it's only once a month, but that once a month is really important to us. So find out about community organizations in your community that you can get involved in. Find out if there's something that you as a family can do together. I just think it's so for our own selves to find our sense of purpose and belonging in the world is so important, especially in today's world. We often think there's nothing we can do. And I'm so grateful to the Goodness Exchange to show all the good that is happening in the world, right? There's so much good, but we can. And I say all the time to our volunteers, we can be the ripple of kindness and goodness in our community. And if we leave Healing Meals feeling really good, the next person we meet is going to feel that, right? And that's going to ripple. And it can feel overwhelming right now, but I think in our own place, in our own spaces, we can make a difference for each other. And I think that's how we've got to do it. So don't be afraid to, don't be afraid to smile at the grocery guy, to thank the person and really look at somebody, who opens the door for you. Or look at that person who's got a really scowl on their face and try and make them smile. Like these are little tiny things that you can do. We write personal note cards every week to our clients. Write a note to somebody, a feel-good note, leave it in the grocery store, leave it on a car window. You have no idea the kind of impact that you can make for somebody. We hear it all the time, and you could be the person to make that happen. So just think about ways to make somebody else's day better. And it starts there, and then it feels good and you want to keep doing it.
It's so true. It's like a 5-minute thing. If you just make a practice of writing notes is the number one thing. For 35 years at Fiddlehead, the dental practice that my husband and I ran, every morning huddle, we picked a few people that needed a note. We heard somebody's husband died, or we heard somebody's battling cancer or whatever. With 15 staff members sitting around the table in a small Vermont town, you can pretty much cover every corner of town and know what's going on.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, now that we've retired, my husband and I, the number of people who stop me in the grocery store or on the street, I might tear up here, and say, that note that I got from Fiddlehead, and it was generally we had all these cards. That's something I'll share with people just as a little aside. I was at a yard sale one day, and somebody had passed away, and they were a note writer. And there was a box this big of just blank note cards of every size and shape. And some of them had get well on it. It was somebody who was a note writer. And we used that box up over a period of 5 years. It was something else. But have them handy. pick up a note. I have notes right now on my desk. I have probably some right here. Oh, here's one right here. I have 2 desks in my house. There's 3 notes out there, but somebody wrote me this card one day. It's the nicest card anyone ever wrote me. I saved it forever. Some days, if the day is not so good, I'll read it. I'm just like writing notes. And that you're giving those kids that skill is mind-bendingly powerful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So as we finish up here, back to reality, it is a tough world out there all around us. You can try and dance as fast as you can and miss the negative volleying that's going back and forth. But sometimes it will land on your ears. Is there something that keeps you going, Sarah, that keeps you hopeful, that keeps you, like, gives you a bit of grit as when on those days that you need it? Like, what do you really wish people knew? What serves you? Do you have a concept a thing that you repeat or anything like that?
I think from day one of starting a nonprofit, having never done this, I just kind of set in my mind that I believed in the work. My sister had started this. I believed in the work. I believed that the work was important. And I have remained, and I say this a lot, overly optimistic. All through COVID, I just kept saying, I remain overly optimistic that things will get better, that the work, that the donors and the supporters will continue to support us. And when I have tough days, which I do, you know what I do? I talk to the volunteers. I make calls to the donors. I check in on clients. And I am reminded of how important it is to keep moving forward, to keep growing so that we can support more people.
What's your little mantra? Say it one more time.
That I remain overly optimistic.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah, I do. And when I say that, there are so many funny stories that have happened, where right after that, where somebody might be a naysayer, and I'll say, I remain overly optimistic, and something amazing happens not long after. And then I'll forward that, email or note to that naysayer and say, as I said, please remain overly optimistic. And trust me, in the 10 years, there's been a lot of hard days and a lot of long, long hours, but I find a lot of joy in being alongside our volunteers, in the kitchen doing the work, just together with them. That brings me a lot of joy.
It's lovely. Okay. So that's where we'll leave this conversation. We've given people a nice little mantra, and then we'll ask people to share with us if you have the same experience that Sarah has.
Yeah,
you can always send something to the contact us and I read those personally, all of them. And so we encourage you to communicate with the Goodness Exchange. And thank you so much, Sarah. You've made our day. And how can people get a hold of you if they, for some reason, wanna learn more or know more or donate or help?
Yeah. So you can go to our website, which is healingmealsproject.org. And you can reach me there, and you can donate there, and you can learn more about us there. That would be the best place. My email is a little long, so I won't, unless you're going to put it in the show notes. But I'm always open. What's been wonderful over the years too, Linda, is people have reached out to say, how do I do this? How do I build this in my community? And I would love nothing more than somebody to come forward and say, I want to build this in my community, and I'd love to help them do that.
Absolutely. That's just striking. Okay. And we will, in the show notes, put all kinds of links for you, including Sarah's email, if she'll allow us to do that. You're a good friend and a good friend to thousands, to me and thousands. And I can't tell you how happy I am to have this episode hit the airwaves. You know, when you create content like this, where you celebrate what's right with the world, you give people some tools for their toolbox, and you remind them of what's right with the world, it's a win all the way around. So thank you, Sarah
Nothing
Leathers.
better. Thank you, Linda, for creating the Goodness Exchange and the Conspiracy of Goodness, so that we can get it all out and share, because it's now more than ever we need to hear it.
Yeah, we're turning the page. I know that it feels rough times right now, but I have my own mantra, which I'll share with people someday, and I know that a new era is coming. Okay, thanks everyone. Have a great week.
All right.